My name is Matthew Thomas. I'm a fly fishing guide in Bath County, Virginia. Came down to this area from Pennsylvania to guide. Just really like the fishing and the people, the remoteness. I guide on the Upper Jackson, Lower Jackson, James, trout, smallmouth. And just, fly fishing, there's so many different ways to go after fish, especially trout.
Set.
Do a lot of nymphing when it comes to trout, kind of a tandem nymph setup. My favorite aspect of guiding, the people I take fishing, the clients. I enjoy taking people that have never fly fished before or even seen a fly rod to people that fly fish all over the world. And I want their time on the water to be memorable, productive. I'm definitely addicted. Can't get enough of it.
What's new with you? How's fishing been?
It's been pretty good. Definitely could use some rain though. It's been kind of a really dry summer.
Low and bony.
Yeah. It's starting to cool off though. It was like 42 the other morning.
Oh dang.
And then I kind of warmed back up again, but felt nice.
When it gets that low, or do you ever wade? Do you do wade trips much, or is it usually trying to float as much as you can just to cover more water?
So I actually pretty much only float in the summer because the headwaters are just so low. We don't fish it until probably middle of September again. So I'm on a tailwater essentially most of the time. But we'll get out and wade out of the boat some.
So they're keeping it low, or it just happens to be low?
They don't generate power or anything. It's all flood control. So it's based how much water is flowing into the lake determines what's going to come out. So it's like low flow. The tailwater is like 200 CFS. It's about 50 CFS inflow. Like in the spring when it's running pretty good, the inflow could be like 1,000 to 2,000. So then they'll let out 6 to 1,500 somewhere.
Yeah. Do you like fishing tailwaters?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can be tricky. But it's like one of the only all wild trout fisheries in the state though. I think that's what mainly the reason I like it.
Gotcha. So I know you come down, you grew up in Pennsylvania, right?
Oh, and in Pennsylvania, kind of a mix.
Gotcha. So when you were growing up, did you fish much? Was it a lot of that like spring creek type stuff?
It was more smallmouth on more freestone kind of stuff. Actually the Cuyahoga River fire at one point, but where I lay kind of middle of nowhere and had really good northern pike and smallmouth fishing. And not far from Pennsylvania, you had trout stuff, and then you have all the Lake Erie tributaries for steelhead. So that was kind of most of the trout fishing early on was steelhead.
That's I'm always jealous. I actually grew up with Jasper and his brother. His older brother went to school up in Rochester, New York, and so I went and visited him a couple times, and we did saw that steelhead fish. Did you ever do any of like the technical spring creek stuff in Pennsylvania? Like I know they've got like Yellow Breeches and the Latort and those types of places.
Yeah, not a whole lot. I haven't gotten back up that way in a while. I just haven't had the desire. Just got everything right here, and but no, not a whole lot. I know a lot of people that do. I think a lot of those fisheries are getting a little tougher, just a little more sure. And
right. What first pulled you down to Bath County?
So graduated from the University of Pittsburgh, and I knew I wanted to guide. And
how'd you know?
I just felt like that was something that would make me happy and that I would enjoy. So I'm not much of an inside person, I was just not much of a sit at a desk person, I guess. So actually there's a big resort where I guided through for several years down here called it's the Omni Homestead. Before it was just the homestead, and my aunt was the director of marketing there. And we'd come down and visit her. I'd fished some stuff around here before, and there was a job opening, and I applied, got it. I figured I'd come down and get my start guiding down here, and ended up meeting my wife here, and I just loved the fishing and guiding, the people that I took fishing and ended up staying. So it's like 14 years later.
Wow. So they had water on the property at the resort and they were hiring a guide?
Yes. So there's it's actually like a mountain spring creek, basically. And guide there and still did float trips on the tailwater. It's pretty much the same stuff that I'm fishing now. Just now that I pretty much my own boss.
What was the biggest difference making the switch to doing it yourself?
I would say the biggest, which was a good bit of them, definitely learned a lot having to, run a business. Luckily my wife does a lot of the paperwork and the accounting kind of end of it. But one, got to get some little bit better equipment. So I pretty much have all H3s right now. And I think I'm talking a lot more with folks to book trips rather than having like a shop that they would call boat at. But
it really didn't see much of you didn't get to converse at all, really?
No, just with kind of my regular clients, they would call me, but anything else, it was, through the shop.
Gotcha. And so I was, or I guess even now, like, how would you say you sort of split your time between the trout and the smallmouth stuff? Is it sort of seasonal, or do you both at the same time? I mean, I know fall's probably good for both.
Yeah, they overlap a little bit, late spring, early fall. And then pretty much in the summer, it's all smallmouth, just way more productive.
Yeah.
And it's a nice mix for myself to break it up a little bit. It's easier rigging for smallmouth. It's less tedious, not tying little droppers, indicators, and all the fine stuff, which I love doing, but it's a nice break.
Yeah. Do you sort of expect same sort of volume and numbers when you're doing a trip for smallmouth versus trout? Or is smallmouth kind of more of a high volume thing?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, definitely high volume with the smallmouth. We'll catch some decent sized fish, but there's a lot of smaller ones, but they fight hard. And it's a perfect fish for a fly rod. They're not super picky, and folks that never fly fish, it's a great way to get out and have some success.
Have you smallmouth fished elsewhere besides back home and where you are now?
I would say, nowhere like way out of between here and there. Not that I can think of.
How does it compare to the stuff you grew up on?
I would say there are probably more smallmouth, maybe not quite as big. I think the water that I'm fishing here is maybe a little bit bigger, less pressure. The area that I'm fishing, I have not seen another raft this year. It's
That's awesome.
It's actually, I do some stuff on the James, which you'll see a lot of rafts and folks fishing out of kayaks, but so the tailwater that I fish is on the lower Jackson, and it runs into a paper mill. And below the paper mill, everyone calls it the Dirty Jackson because the process that they use and goes back into the water. And it kind of has an interesting kind of tannic color to it. So it does look kind of dirty. But I think that keeps people from fishing it. And I think I've seen just a handful of folks like fishing, spin stuff on the banks. But other than that, it's got the whole river to yourself.
That's so awesome. It's interesting because it also seems like smallmouth. I mean, with the Cuyahoga and kind of what you're describing, they can kind of like thrive in those types of environments. They're pretty hardy. And I went to school up in Maine, and you have all these old mill towns and the rivers going through them, and those rivers were trashed, back when they were running those mills with all the effluent. And it's probably some of the best smallmouth fishing in the country there too. I don't know. I mean, I guess Cuyahoga is a good example. Like back when you were growing up, do you remember that being something where people were like, don't go in the river? Or was it sort of fine at that point?
It was fine at that point. I think because it was so far from the area that was, I guess, kind of known to be polluted. And it was it's still like very remote. There's not a whole lot of houses along it. So you didn't really feel like you were on, a slightly maybe polluted water. But and then even there, that wasn't fished very hard either. It was more just some recreational canoe and kayak folks. That was about it.
Gotcha. Did you grow up doing fly there too, or were you spin fishing?
A little bit of both.
Yeah. What got you into into fly?
No, that is everything about it. There's just so many ways to go about using a fly rod. There's so many different techniques and, all the flies and just everything about it, including the people that are in, kind of the fly fishing world seem to be really cool, down to earth, pretty chill.
Yeah.
It's, it's similar, but also very different than the conventional fishing.
Yeah. So I know we had talked about, the potential of having a pretty good cicada year, which is, a good way to get on a good dry fly, topwater bite. Did that ever pan out for you? How was it this year?
Oh, we didn't get any of the periodic cicada. As we were early on when they were showing kind of the map of where they thought we might get them, we were kind of on the edge. And as it got closer, it seemed like they went farther away. But we have a decent, I'd say, annual population. You can hear them a good bit. You see some, and we get a pretty good, popper fishing season because of that.
Yeah. The other thing I'm just kind of remembering too is like up in Maine, when you talk about smallmouth and you talk about trout, they were always like the smallmouth was always a perceived threat to the trout. And I don't know if you've got much of an overlap in terms of the water that you're fishing, but do you think about it that way, or are they still like?
Yeah, not at all. It's on that tailwater, they don't really coexist because they're separated from the paper mill. It's been a while since I've caught a smallmouth in the upper part where the trout are. It's been years.
So there's a big spillway or something that blocks it.
Yeah, the paper mill completely blocks it, I guess. I haven't been right there to see how it really looks, but I'm pretty sure it's completely blocked off.
They don't do fish lyres or anything?
No, they don't.
Interesting. Yeah, that was always so funny to me because, like, I mean, smallmouth are a perfectly fun thing to catch, but like people would just kind of vilify them because they were like, oh, they're eating the brook trout, or well, there definitely are a lot of, there's a lot of water up way north in Maine where I think they've lost a lot of really good brook trout fishing from smallmouth coming in. But it's like, I don't know. I think, they're both native to the area. So it's sort of just like natural infiltration of the water, I think. It's not like someone putting them there unless, I mean, I know they got a lot of signs around saying don't release fish from one place to another. But do you think the management in your area does a pretty good job at with, I guess, both with the tailwater and the flow management, but also with just like the regulations? Is that something that they like to bring, the businesses and guides that are recreating on the water? Do they bring you guys into the conversation a lot?
They're starting to do that a lot more now.
What does that look like?
Right now there's a fish biologist I'm working with at Washington and Lee College over in Lexington, and he's working with like game and inland fisheries department to kind of get data on the spawning, the reds with the brown trout and rainbows, but definitely the browns. Just trying to get where the reds are. I'm kind of this year I'll kind of report to him where I'm seeing them, and then hopefully we can get some better flows during that time, because there's been years where we've had better flows, seen more reds, and there's been years where it's been really low and way less reds, just because of the water that they, I typically see the reds in this kind of flat, kind of really small pebbles, like pea-size rock, and some years, some of those spots were almost exposed. So I'm hoping this will hopefully increase the population.
Yeah, at least give them a good baseline understanding of it.
Yeah.
Is the water you fish like, I'm sure you get a lot of clients who come in who've done trout fishing out west and maybe have that image in their mind of like the big western trout river. Like, are your clients ever visibly or audibly surprised and kind of talk about how they wouldn't have expected to see trout, or is it like, kind of paint the picture for me a little bit, I guess? Like, what does it look like on these rivers? Is it typical?
Yeah, no, I get that quite a bit. On the tailwater, it's for Virginia standards, it's at least in the mountains, it's a fairly decent size river. But if you fish, any western tailwater, it's really small. It can be technical. You have a lot of trees in your back cast, small little pockets, a lot of big rocks. It's riffle run pool. So you're not just getting it out there and mending the whole time. It can be technical. The Upper Jackson, there's a private farm that I guide on, and pretty much year round except the summer, that can look like a western spring creek because it runs through a farm and there are no trees. It's all plow paths. So it's really unique. It's the only place other than a few spots. There's a place called Mossy Creek in Harrisonburg. That's a true spring creek that has some farmland, but this is a couple miles of just tall grass and cows for the most part.
That's super cool.
And the people are really surprised at the size of the fish that come out of it.
Is it a good terrestrial spot with all the grass and ocean stuff?
It's pretty awesome.
That's really cool. Do you have a terrestrial season, or is it sort of like all summer long you can kind of get them?
I would even say even like late spring this year, we had a pretty good terrestrial season before hoppers were out or anything. They were eating big chubbies. They were crushing them. And it was just, I kind of put one on one day as just kind of an indicator on a dry dropper, and like first or second cast, fish crushed it. And I think it was like 17 or 18 fish that day on that big hopper. That's pretty remarkable. Yeah.
Clients, a lot of the times, I mean, I know like from personal experience, whenever you add that dropper on, it's always sort of, it's a ticking time bomb until you do end up, renting that rig. Do you sort of like pick and choose which clients you're gonna do like a multi-fly rig with, or do you like to give more targets for that fish pretty consistently?
Yeah, I would say most folks, I'll still go ahead and throw a dry dropper. A lot of times with folks starting off, will stick to just a roll cast at the beginning. There's just less room for that stuff to get tangled up. And once they're starting to do a good pickup laydown, I'll try to teach them to have more of an open casting loop to prevent that tailing loop coming through. And that's also a great thing for, folks who do it a lot that are able to kind of control their loop, and they realize they can open that loop up and reduce that tailing loop. Make a huge difference.
For sure. Yeah. Do you do a lot of casting lessons? Like, will you get people and then you give them a little rundown before you hit the water, or do you just sort of dive in and give them tips as you go?
No, certainly start with a little casting lesson on dry land, and then kind of progress in how to fish the fly, mending, hook set. I just feel that it's a lot easier to do that than try to talk somebody through the whole process to start.
So I was actually curious because I know when we shot that little video with you, which I thought came out really, really cool. I know that was your wife, right, who was on the boat with you. Do you fish with her a lot?
Good bit, yep.
Yeah. Have you always fished with her, or did you kind of get her into it?
She pretty much, we've always fished together. She likes it a lot, especially when the weather's nice. Get her out there a little more. But yeah, no, that video was really cool.
Yeah, Spencer did an awesome job with.
It's kind of funny. He was telling us he was coming back up in like 2 weeks to the area because he was going to this little restaurant and inn, and it's actually where my wife is a waitress at. So
oh no,
we saw him again like 2 weeks later. Yeah,
he was shooting something for them.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I actually have a lot of clients that stay at that inn, so it's kind of a neat connection.
That's super cool. Yeah, what I was gonna ask you is, like, do you use like the same guide demeanor when you're fishing with your wife, like, because I know it can get a little contentious, like giving instruction to your family members on the water.
I try to. I'm probably pretty comical if you were in the boat with us. I try not to be too serious. It's one of those fun.
What's your ideal day? Like, what do you do on your days off? Do you not fish? Maybe you do fish at all.
I'll try to fish. I'm also a shooting instructor, sporting clay, skeet, trap. So I do that, not a whole lot, but a couple, maybe 3 to 5 days a month.
Gotcha.
So every now and then, if I get a chance, I like to go shoot some sporting clays.
Nice. Jasper and I might need some help from me. So we went out this past weekend and didn't do so good. But do you have a good course by you?
We do. It's at the resort that I started guiding at.
Oh, nice.
And we've got actually 2 sporting clays courses, and they actually had the first U.S. Open sporting clays there is like 91.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's super cool. Do you compete? Are you in a league or anything?
No. Pretty much most of the guys that work there do. A lot of those guys it's impressive to watch them shoot. They don't miss. If they do, it's not a whole lot. But it definitely makes you better shooting with folks like that, though. But no, to me, it would defeat my purpose because I do it just kind of for fun. But I've had some of the guys that work there have asked me to go to do some competitive shooting, and I've thought about I might do it just to see what it's about one day. But
I think you're really good, and you're just being very humble.
But yeah, maybe in the future.
Yeah. Do you bird hunt as well, or just the clay stuff?
A little bit. There's not a whole lot. There's some really nice preserves around here, and we do have actually a pretty decent population of grouse. So a little bit of that.
You ever get into like the cast and blast stuff in the fall, or do you not really guide hunts?
Well, that's something that I'm kind of thinking about looking into.
Yeah.
Especially winter can be a little slow.
Yeah. Do you get woodcock there too, or is it just?
We do. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That always seems like. I mean, if you've got a good spot where you have good water and you also have the birds, that just seems like such a fun way to spend the day.
I think you ever heard them called timber doodles?
I haven't heard that one before. No, for rocket, I've heard.
I've heard a lot of folks from Virginia, North Carolina call them timber doodle.
We got snipe down here. We're both in South Carolina, Jasper and myself. But they're like we do have woodcock too, but snipe I think are maybe a little bit more common. I don't know if you've shot them before, but they're like a mini woodcock basically. They're fast as shit. Yeah, they're like, they look almost. See if I can even pull up a photo.
Yeah. Drone flying by.
Like they look like a mini woodcock, but they're small. They're really small. I mean, there's nothing really here for scale, but
yeah. Well, that one on the fence post you can.
And I guess that's how the term sniper came about. Is like the people that were good snipe hunters were, the best. It's because they're so fast and small. They're funny though, because when you flush them, a lot of the times they won't go that far, and like you can even like shoot and miss, and they'll like land in like another corner of a field, and then you can just have another go at it, which is kind of funny. I don't think I've never actually woodcock hunted, but I don't think it's quite the same way. You do any saltwater fishing?
I've got to do a fair amount. I'd say the closest. That I would say the most that I do is like tributaries of the Chesapeake Bay, like the Rappahannock or the Piankatank, and then in downtown Richmond, which is about 3 hours away, on the James, we'll get shad and stripers that run up, and that's really cool because you're in the middle of the city and you're catching fish right there. It's really neat.
That's super cool. Do you target the stripers when they're actually feeding on the shad, or is it sort of a different window for each?
They overlap a little bit. I don't think I've been there when they've kind of overlapped. So it's just targeting each.
And when you're trout fishing, are you doing a lot of streamer stuff too, or not so much?
So on the tailwater, early spring with higher flows, the streamer fishing can be pretty productive, and then kind of pre-spawn here not too long. But even in both time frames, thing is probably just more productive.
Yeah.
For some clients, it's a little easier. Streamer fishing, there's just a little bit more to it, a little longer casts, and then, managing your line, stripping. But mostly nymphing, and then some dry fly stuff on the tailwater. But I do enjoy streamer fishing.
Yeah. Well, when you're nymphing, do you like to mix it up in terms of sizes? If you are throwing like a multi-fly rig, do you run like a big one and some little ones, or do you sort of try and keep it consistent throughout?
I definitely have usually fish two sizes, unless the fish are just really keyed in on, one or the other.
Yeah.
I do a lot I don't know, you might have noticed on the video, but I had a mono rig set up most of the time. You do a lot of Euro,
Yeah.
and it is just way more productive. So I'm definitely fishing two different size flies. You got your big anchor fly on the bottom, and then a tag end, you leave at the top from your surgeons with the smaller fly there. So definitely using two sizes.
Yeah. Are those rods that you're running, do you go like 10 feet on them or do you keep it standard?
Not anywhere from 10 to 11. I have some 10-foot rods, some 11, and then some 10. And those are typically like the 10 sticks, and the 11 footers are usually 2 or 3 weight rods.
Yeah.
Really sensitive. The 10, so I have a 10-foot 4-weight rod that are nice for throwing maybe like a bigger setup. But I also use those 10-foot 4 rods all the time for just standard nymphing and standard dry fly fishing, because it makes it a lot easier to mend. And I feel that you get a lot more tippet protection from that longer, more flexible rod. It makes all the difference in the world, I think, from fishing a 9. Really the only time that I'm using a 9-foot rod is maybe on the headwaters, or if we're just throwing, dries and I want a really kind of subtle presentation.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's a little bit more accurate, but I fish a lot of longer rods.
Do people ever get on the raft and they're like, what is this? Like they're not used to that type of rig?
Yeah, I mean, I've had several people that have fished, a lot, and it's only been waiting, and they get on a raft, and usually they're like, wow, this is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And it's, it's just a great way to cover water. That's the big difference there. But yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But with the rods too, like people who are maybe haven't Euro nymphed before, it's not that, yeah. I mean, is that, that's almost like a new learning curve probably for some people that have done a lot of fishing and like, that's just not something they've experienced before.
Right. And I think that the actual process of fishing the fly with the Euro rod is relatively simple. It's really in the setup is where it has to be all dialed in with the right length cider and how long your leader is. That's where I think it can be, a lot. It's just a lot different than using an indicator or whatnot.
Right. Have you done different types of Euro nymphing, or is there like one that you have sort of stuck with?
The mono rig works really well. I use that a lot. Just you can feel what that fly is doing a lot more. It's a lot more sensitive. It's harder to cast though, because you're just using the weight of the flies. So it takes a few minutes to get used to it. It's a lot easier to use a Euro setup with I use a Euro fly line, but still it makes it easier to get the fly out there.
And you're using a full cage reel for those mono setups, or do you not really have issues with the line snaking through? Or
no, I've got both, but
yeah.
I haven't really had any issues.
Yeah, I've always sort of seen it where like, I mean, I have not done much Euro nymphing at all. I don't own like a Euro setup, but actually one of our coworkers here, he likes to Euro nymph a lot, and his setup is like a Euro nymphing setup. But from what I understand, from what you're saying, you swap the reel out and you'll just start throwing a more standard rig on the same rod.
I have a bunch of rods just set up. Folks that aren't guiding don't, usually have that luxury, but definitely could easily switch it out.
It's the benefit of being in a raft, being full
walkway walkway trips. I'll still carry, like I'll have 2 rods, and then client, have their rod in their hand, and I'll carry 2.
Yeah. How many rods are typically on your raft?
I'd say about 6,
yeah,
maybe 7.
That's got to save you a lot of time. Speed time on the water, but eat up time when you get back home and have to
Yeah, some days I might not may use like 1 or 2 rods, but I just like knowing that they're there. Just some days use all of them and just switching like crazy. Just never know.
When you do have those days, I mean, they've got to happen. When you get out there and you're just kind of really surprised by what's going on. It's just not exactly what you expected. How do you sort of navigate that with your client?
Well, one is we can use that time to work on something that client might want to work on, just fishing streamers, or how to tie up stuff, or casting. It's a great way to kind of do a clinic. But still, try and like heck to get those fish to do something at the same time. But more so that can happen on the tailwater, and summer months and stuff like that if we were to. But it's not the easiest thing. Most clients understand. And I get a lot of first time folks that come out and they're like, I just want to be out here. I don't care if I catch anything or not. And usually with that mentality, you do pretty good.
Yeah.
That's the best when you have folks that are, that are laid back and, there to have a good time. They typically catch more fish.
So it's funny how that works. Do you do shore lunches?
Yes.
What's on the menu?
Do a lot of, like ham and cheddar, or like Virginia ham and cheddar. Like buffalo chicken and provolone. I like a lot of like sparkling water. I love that stuff, like lemon flavored. I'll have that. A lot of Diet Coke and bottled water. I drink a lot of Diet Coke, Diet Pepsi, which is kind of funny. Definitely chocolate chip cookies, and gotta have the kettle cooked chips.
Yeah, those are definitely a must have. Have you seen those videos of the people doing the blind taste test of the Diet Coke? Oh my gosh. It's it's this new trend that's been going around where like people will have a can of Diet Coke and a bottle of Diet Coke, and then they'll have fountain Diet Coke from McDonald's and Chick-fil-A, and they'll put them all in a box with straws and turn the box around, and people who are avid consumers of Diet Coke can differentiate which one is from which venue.
Probably, I think McDonald's has some really good fountain soda.
They got those fancy new digital fountains now.
Yeah, I'd like to have one of those.
What was the other thing I was going to ask you? Oh yeah, and what sparkling water? You like the Spindrift stuff?
There's this couple different ones. I like Polar. It's kind of like a generic one. I like the Topo Chico and the I like the Perrier.
Yeah,
I'm feeling fancy. I'll get that.
So. Yeah, the carbonation's a little sharp for me. For some reason, it feels sharper than the other ones to me. Yeah. But Polar, now that they did like the rebrand, and that I think it's cherry lime. Oh, that one I will crush. I will crush cherry lime Polars. But I mean, I think it's important to have, those things as part of the, your fishing trip. They kind of add a little bit of tradition, but also, they're just a nice perk, I'm sure, for like your clients as well.
Yeah, certainly. It's something you can control.
Yeah. Do you get a lot of repeat people who you fished for many years?
Yeah. I get some folks that come almost every month, every other month. In this area, we get a lot of folks that have like second homes from Richmond, Northern Virginia, DC. So they're out here quite a bit, and those are a lot of my repeat clients. And then there's some folks that that are relatively local too, that come a good bit.
How do you think about kind of like creating the atmosphere on your trips to hopefully make someone like a repeat client, for years to come?
You definitely want, to be inviting. Make sure that obviously they're having a good time, having fun, but also learning. I also like to think that fish really hard. Like my full day trips usually 8 hours. I would say rarely am I ever done in 8 hours. It's like 10. Sometimes 12, and my half day trip, sometimes like 6 hours, and a lot of people like that. And if they don't, I could kind of tell, or I ask beforehand, if they have a certain time they need to be back or whatnot. But I think putting that extra time in goes a long way.
For sure. Is that basically like you're building in time to just cover water more thoroughly? You're not necessarily hitting different water because I'm assuming you're doing like a shuttle, so you've got your takeout. So you're sort of taking time to pick apart the runs and the pools a little bit more thoroughly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then there's occasions where a lot of times my wife, since she's a waitress, she's days like she's off or shouldn't have to be like, if I'm going to be done before she has to go to work, she can drop me off. So I don't have a certain spot I have to take out. So I can either get out early or a little farther.
That's nice.
So that's huge.
Yeah. For people who are, I guess for people who haven't visited your area of Virginia before, like, what do you think is the sort of like iconic aspect of your home fishery there? Is it the variety? Is it the consistency throughout the year?
I would say one, definitely the remoteness. I think in this county, App County, it's maybe 3,000 people in the entire county, and even less than that in the county north of us. So it's really remote. Don't see, even on like a busy day, it might seem busy to me on the river, but it's still, pretty quiet.
Yeah, well, not seeing anyone all season on your river sounds pretty good.
I think the other reason for that is the put in or the takeout's kind of tough. I have like a super long winch and it's a whole process to get the boat out. But yeah, that makes it big. Now definitely see people on the trout section, more so in the spring. I'll see a lot of out of state folks, I think, just kind of chasing the season.
Yeah. Do they stock right at the beginning?
So they actually don't stock this. It's all natural production. They're natural reproduction. There's certain places on the headwater, national forest water, that they will stock.
Got it. Yeah, that's another topic I kind of want to learn a little bit more about when people are deciding, the people who are making the decisions to stock or to not to stock a river. It's cool that you've got them naturally reproducing in there. I mean, it's got to be prettier fish at the very least, but it sounds like you've got a lot of them too.
There's a good bit of wild trout in the area.
Do you get any other warm water stuff coming in besides the smallmouth, like largemouth or carp or pike?
Yeah, we'll catch some largemouth. Every now and then we'll fish. I'll do some half day floats. There's a lake right down the road from my house, and for the two rivers, the Jackson and the cow pasture come in, where it forms a river. We'll put in there, and you can catch carp, largemouth, smallmouth, and trout. Pretty cool.
That's awesome. And that's all in the Stillwater, or it's like sort of
you kind of get out of that confluence, and it's pretty much Stillwater. Certain times of the year too, depending on how much water's coming in. But that's another unique spot. I kind of just started doing that this year.
Yeah.
That was something that place I'd fish a lot, on a day off or something. But
yeah,
it's actually really good dry fly fishing, or the smallmouth, the trout, and occasional carp will eat your dry.
Nice. That's I've yet to catch one on a dry fly that wasn't an imitation of a piece of bread. Back when I lived in Boston, I used to, there's a couple, like, in the middle of Boston, there were some ponds where you could get them and like get them all fired up with some bread. And then what are you going to do? You're stuck in Boston.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Pretty cool.
Yeah. Jasper, did you have any other questions to run through? Because I know we're just at time now.
I guess I just got one that I'd love to run by you. You said you got him and you got out of college and thought, it's something that would make you happy to do. So I guess I'm just curious, like, what you feel like you get out of it. What it's been like for you growing through it, and kind of what makes you happy now doing it.
It's rewarding, one, to be able to get somebody into the sport, or just make memories on a just an amazing day or just some situation. That's that, and people ask me, why you like fly fishing. I can't really ever give the exact
a hard question.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many things. Even like if you have a good day, it's like reassurance, like, okay, you kind of know what you're doing sometimes. And I don't know, it's just after a day on the water, I feel relaxed and or humbled at the same time, and it's all different mixes of feelings, but it's always exciting. So, you're always looking forward to something.
I always feel tired. I like that I sleep well.
Tired, I would say. I'll come home a lot of times and I'll sit down and not sleep. But that's a good question. It's hard to answer though. Exactly, I would say. Kind of a mix of things.
Oh, that was good. Well, Matt, I still need to get up to your neck of the woods at some point. I want to come check it out for myself.
It's when a lot of people think of Virginia, they might think of like the coast or Northern Virginia or something, but it's mountains and a lot of trees.
Yeah, it sounds beautiful. I did, God, where were we in Virginia? I don't know. I did a little smallmouth trip up that way with a buddy of mine last year. And it was a lot of like just floating through farmland, which I thought was super cool. And then you'd kind of enter, very densely wooded areas, and it was just like, it was a lot more scenic than I expected it to be. And the quality of the fish was really good too. So I'm excited to hopefully get back there soon.
Yeah, come on out. Let me know. Love to take you. Yeah.